Okay, let's unpack this. Because every single night, when you fall into a deep sleep, the cells inside your brain, like, literally shrink.
They do, yeah. They physically reduce in size.
Which just sounds like science fiction, right? But this microscopic transformation is, well, it's basically the only thing standing between you and accelerated neurodegeneration. So when we hear people casually say things like, oh, I'll sleep when I'm dead,
Or
or
when they wear those 80-hour work weeks like a badge of honor.
exactly, it just completely misses what sleep actually is.
It is arguably one of the most dangerous cultural myths we've universally accepted. Because biologically speaking, sleep is not a passive state.
Right.
It's not like, you know, closing your laptop to save battery power. It is actually the most anabolically active state the human body ever enters.
Wow. The most acts.
Yes. Every single physiological system you rely on, your hormonal regulation, immune function, cellular repair, memory consolidation, they all depend on this specific phase to just sort of recalibrate and rebuild.
So it's a total system recalibration.
Precisely. When you chronically cut that short, you aren't just making yourself tired. You are actively dismantling biological systems that took millions of years of evolution to perfect.
And that is exactly what we are unpacking for you today in this deep dive. We're going to get into the absolute biological foundation of how your body functions.
Yeah, it's a massive topic.
It really is. We're going to look at the hidden machinery that makes sleep happen, the daily habits that are secretly sabotaging it, and how to build a master protocol to fix your rest permanently. But, and I think this is key, before we can fix it, we have to understand the mechanics underneath it all.
Right, the underlying biology.
Exactly, because falling asleep isn't just flipping a switch on the wall. I like to think of it more like a nuclear submarine's two-key launch system.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. You need two separate keys, turned at the exact same time, to initiate the sequence.
That perfectly captures the necessity of alignment, yeah.
Yeah.
Biologists actually call this the two-process model of sleep.
Okay, so break down the first key for us.
So the first key, process C, represents your circadian clock. This is a deeply embedded biological timer located in the hypothalamus, running on roughly a 24-hour cycle.
And that's entirely controlled by light, right?
Yes, mostly light. It dictates when your body expects peak wakefulness and when it expects sleep by regulating this seesaw of hormones, specifically driving up cortisol for alertness and releasing melatonin for sleep.
Okay, so that's the timing mechanism. But timing alone isn't enough to physically make you tired. You need the second key, which is process S.
Right, sleep pressure.
Yeah, sleep pressure. And this drive is fueled by a chemical called adenosine. So as you go about your day, burning cellular energy to, think, move, function, adenosine is the metabolic byproduct left behind.
It's like a chemical receipt of your energy expenditure.
Exactly. Think of it like ash building up in a fireplace. The longer you're awake, the more adenosine accumulates in the brain, creating this physical, biological weight that literally drives you toward unconsciousness.
And you need both of those keys to turn simultaneously. If you have high sleep pressure tons of adenosine ash, but your circadian clock thinks it's, say, 2 in the afternoon, you'll feel completely drained, but you won't fall into a restorative sleep.
Because the keys don't match.
Right. That mismatch is the exact biological definition of jet lag. Conversely, if your circadian clock is perfectly aligned for 10 at night, but you took a 2-hour nap at 6 and cleared out all that adenosine pressure.
Your sleep drive is too weak.
Exactly. You'll simply lay there awake, staring at the ceiling, waiting for the ash to build up again.
Man, that makes so much sense. And when both of those keys do turn perfectly, that is when we get to the shrinking brain cells, which the source is called the glymphatic system.
Yes, the glymphatic system is fascinating. During deep, slow-wave sleep, which happens predominantly in the first half of the night, the glial cells in your brain reduce their volume by up to 60%.
60%, that's massive.
It is. They shrink so that cerebrospinal fluid can literally rush into the interstitial spaces and power wash the brain.
So it's a literal overnight cleaning crew.
It really is. Because throughout the day, normal cognitive function produces intense metabolic waste. And two of the most notorious byproducts of simply being awake are amyloid beta and tau proteins.
Wait, those names, those are the exact same proteins linked to Alzheimer's, right?
Yes, they are the exact proteins that aggregate into toxic plaques in the brains of patients suffering from neurodegeneration.
So the physical act of deep sleep is the only mechanism flushing those proteins out.
Yes. When neurologists warn that chronic sleep deprivation is a major risk factor for cognitive decline, they aren't using a metaphor. Your brain is structurally failing to cleanse itself of the very proteins that cause neuronal death.
Wow. Okay, so if the stakes are that high, the immediate question is how we actually control those keys. And I struggle with this, honestly, because if my goal is to fall asleep by, say, 11 at night, my instinct is to focus entirely on my evening routine.
Sure, that's what most people do.
But according to the sources, the single most critical action you can take to dictate that 11 p.m. bedtime actually happens the moment you wake up, which feels totally
It
backward
feels entirely backward, but morning sunlight is the master switch for that first key, the circadian clock.
because it halts the melatonin.
Yes, and more. Getting outside within 30 to 60 minutes of waking up and letting natural sunlight hit your eyes for, say, 5 to 30 minutes anchors your entire 24-hour biological rhythm.
Right.
When those specific light photons hit your retinas, you immediately halt the production of any residual melatonin from the night before, which clears away that morning grogginess. And you trigger a healthy, robust spike in morning cortisol for sustained alertness.
And it is crucial to note here, because I know people will try to cheat this. Sitting by a sunny window in your kitchen does not work.
No, unfortunately not.
Yeah, standard window glass filters out the specific blue light wavelengths that your eyes need to properly set that clock. You have to physically step outside.
You do. But here is the critical mechanism for your evening bedtime. That morning light exposure effectively flips an hourglass. It actually starts a 12 to 14-hour biological countdown timer for your evening melatonin release.
Wait, really? A literal countdown timer?
Yes, without that massive influx of morning photons to set the anchor, the clock drifts. Your brain doesn't know precisely when morning was, so it delays the melatonin release later that night.
Pushing your natural sleep window further back.
Exactly.
Okay, so you are setting the evening anchor in the morning. That makes the evening routine less about forcing sleep and more about protecting that melatonin release, which brings us to this evolutionary quirk about how our eyes process light.
Oh, the overhead light issue. This is so interesting.
Yeah, we hear so much about the dangers of screens, but the physical location of the light source in your room is just as vital, isn't it?
It is. This is deeply rooted in our ancestral environment. The human eye has specialized photoreceptors concentrated in the lower half of the retina, meaning they are specifically designed to look up and detect light coming from above.
Because for most of human history, bright overhead light meant the midday sun.
Right. It was the ultimate biological signal for peak wakefulness. But firelight, or the setting sun, those are at eye level or below.
So they hit a completely different part of the visual field.
Exactly. So when you walk in your kitchen at 9 p.m. and flip on the recessed LED ceiling lights, your ancient biology literally interprets that as high noon.
And it instantly suppresses your melatonin. You're hitting the brakes on your sleep drive just as it's supposed to be taking over.
Yes. Simply dimming your overhead lights and relying exclusively on desk lamps or floor lamps at eye level is a massive biological signal to your brain that the sun has set.
Okay, so light dictates the clock, but there's another master switch we have to pull, and that's temperature. Your core body temperature must drop by about 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit for sleep to occur,
It has to, yes.
which introduces what the sources call the warm bath paradox. Taking a warm bath or a hot shower 60 to 90 minutes before bed is one of the most proven ways to actually cool your core, which sounds crazy.
It's a brilliant biological trick, honestly. When you get into hot water, your body's immediate survival priority is to dump heat to prevent overheating. So it initiates intense peripheral vasodilation.
Which means the blood vessels in your hands and feet dilate widely.
But exactly. It brings all that warm blood to the surface of the skin. Then, when you step out of the hot shower and into a cooler bedroom, all that warm blood at the surface rapidly radiates the heat away from your body into the ambient air.
Like a car radiator venting heat away from the engine block.
That's a perfect analogy. It accelerates the cool-down process dramatically, plunging your core temperature much faster than if you had just climbed straight into bed.
Okay, so we have the temperature dropping, we've set the light timer, the eye level lamps are on. But none of that matters if we are unknowingly jamming the launch keys. Let's talk about the chemical saboteurs.
Caffeine and alcohol.
Right. And I mean, I have to play the skeptic here because I know people who will drink a coffee at 2 p.m., fall asleep at 10 p.m. with zero issues, and just assume they are immune to caffeine's effects.
Well, what's fascinating here is that being able to lose consciousness is not the same thing as achieving restorative sleep. The actual math of caffeine's half-life tells a very different story.
It's 5 to 7 hours, right?
Yes, roughly 5 to 7 hours in most adults. So if you consume a standard cup of coffee, about 200 milligrams of caffeine, at 2 p.m., Your liver has only processed half of it by 8 p.m.
Meaning you still have 100 milligrams actively circulating in your brain.
Exactly. And it goes back to adenosine, that sleep pressure ash building up. Caffeine doesn't magically clear the adenosine away to give you true energy. It simply blocks it.
Because the caffeine molecule is structurally similar to adenosine.
Right. It fits perfectly into the adenosine receptors in your brain, blocking them completely. It is exactly like putting earplugs in so you don't hear a fire alarm. The fire is still burning.
Oh, wow.
The adenosine continues to accumulate in the background all afternoon. So even if you do manage to fall asleep, the architecture of that sleep is fundamentally compromised.
So that glymphatic cleaning process we talked about, the deep sleep washing away the Alzheimer's proteins, that gets severely blunted.
Severely. You're unconscious, but you aren't doing the deep repair. And then at 2 or 3 in the morning, when your liver finally metabolizes the last of that caffeine,
The earplugs come out.
the earplugs come out, the receptors suddenly open up, and you get hit with a tidal wave of unmetabolized adenosine,
Leading to a massive crash or waking up feeling completely unrefreshed.
which ironically drives you straight back to the coffee pot.
Right. It's
Yeah.
a brutal cycle. And the other half of that cycle is alcohol. It is probably the most misused sleep aid in the world. People swear by a nightcap to help them drift off because it undeniably makes you feel drowsy.
It does make you drowsy, but the critical distinction here is between sleep and sedation. Alcohol is a central nervous system depressant. It effectively lightly anesthetizes you. It does not induce natural sleep.
And the consequences are severe, particularly for REM sleep. Right?
Yes. Alcohol is one of the most potent suppressors of REM sleep we know of. And REM is essential for emotional regulation. It literally strips the visceral emotional charge away from difficult memories overnight.
So when you block REM with alcohol, you wake up significantly more anxious.
Yes. Furthermore, as the liver metabolizes the alcohol in the second half of the night, it triggers rebound arousal. Your sympathetic nervous system kicks in, your body temperature spikes, and you experience these shallow, restless awakenings.
So you might have been in bed for 8 hours, but your sleep architecture was just shattered.
Completely shattered.
Okay, but let's say you've done everything right. You cut the caffeine, skip the nightcap, your room is a cool 65 degrees. You get into bed, and instantly your brain just starts racing. The to-do list, the stress. The way we treat our evenings often feels like driving down the highway at 70 miles per hour and trying to instantly park the car without using the brakes.
Physiologically, that's exactly what's happening. The human nervous system oscillates between two main modes: the sympathetic state, which is fight or flight, and the parasympathetic state, which is rest and digest.
And sleep requires the rest and digest state.
Absolute parasympathetic dominance.
Yeah.
You fundamentally cannot enter sleep if your nervous system believes it needs to process a threat.
And the modern problem is that the body doesn't distinguish between a physical predator and like a doom-scrolling session on social media.
Exactly. They both trigger the exact same cascade of stress hormones. Elevated nighttime cortisol actively suppresses melatonin. Your brain gets the unambiguous message, we are under threat, do not power down.
So we need a 90-minute wind down, transitioning away from screens, not just because of the blue light, but because of the threat detection and social arousal.
It's a necessary behavioral off-ramp.
But if you're already in bed and the mind is racing, there is this fascinating intervention from the text called the physiological sigh.
Yes, the physiological sigh. It is one of the most effective real-time tools for shifting autonomic arousal.
So you take a double inhale through the nose, one deep breath, followed by a quick, sharp second inhale to maximally expand the lungs, and then a long, slow exhale through the mouth.
The magic is entirely in that long exhalation. When you exhale slowly, the heart physically becomes a little smaller and blood flows more quickly through it. The brain senses this and sends a signal back via the vagus nerve to aggressively slow down the heart rate.
So it's basically a mechanical override switch for the nervous system to instantly kill that sympathetic activation.
Yes, just 2 or 3 of those can drop your heart rate in seconds.
Which is vastly superior to reaching for the medicine cabinet. And speaking of which, we should briefly touch on supplements. Magnesium glycinate is praised in the sources for quieting the nervous system, but the text has this shocking warning about melatonin.
Oh, the megadosing. It is a massive blind spot in public health.
Because commercial supplements are, what, 3, 5, even 10 milligrams?
Right. But normal physiological levels produced by your brain are tiny, around 0.1 to 0.3 milligrams. People are casually swallowing 10 to 50 times the amount their body naturally produces.
Which completely floods the receptors and leaves you groggy the next day.
Exactly. Melatonin is a timing hormone, not a sledgehammer to knock you unconscious.
Wow. Okay, so we have all these micro tactics, but they only work if they are held together by a rock-solid structural foundation. And this is where I think a lot of us fail. What about the weekends? Can we just use Saturday to catch up on the sleep debt we built up during the week?
It feels logical, but biologically, you are inflicting a phenomenon known as social jet lag on yourself.
Because you're shifting your wake time so drastically.
Yes, your circadian clock thrives on absolute consistency. If you wake up at 6 a.m. on weekdays, but sleep until 10 a.m. on the weekend, it is biologically equivalent to crossing multiple time zones twice a week.
So you are giving yourself clinical jet lag every single weekend. Waking up at the exact same time every single day is really the #1 most underrated intervention.
By far. Anchor the wake time, and the bedtime will naturally handle itself.
There is one final rule to this foundation, which is conditioned arousal. And the rule is the bed is for sleep and sex only.
Yes, the human brain is a relentless association machine. If you habitually sit in bed to scroll on your phone or worry about tomorrow, your brain rapidly learns to associate the mattress with wakefulness.
You're basically training your brain to be alert the moment your head hits the pillow.
It's a classic Pavlovian response. This is why stimulus control is the bedrock of treating insomnia. If you get into bed and you cannot fall asleep after roughly 20 minutes, you must get out of bed.
Break the association.
Exactly. Go to a dimly lit room, read a book, and do not return until the biological drive to sleep is overwhelming.
When we pull all of this together, it really paints a clear picture. Applying these protocols isn't a luxury or an indulgence, it's an act of profound self-respect.
I couldn't agree more.
But as a final provocative thought to leave you with, there's a brilliantly counterintuitive warning from the end of the source text: orthosomnia.
Yes, the dark side of sleep tracking.
Exactly. We live in an age where we have all these amazing wearables to track our sleep stages and heart rate. But the research warns of orthosomnia, an intense anxiety entirely driven by sleep tracking data. As you apply all these incredible tools to hack your rest, you have to ask yourself, could obsessing over your smartwatch's sleep score actually be the very thing triggering your fight or flight response?
It's a very real paradox.
Are we so determined to win at sleeping that we've forgotten how to simply let go, something to mull over tonight? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Try out the physiological side tonight, and we'll catch you next time.